Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for holding this hearing. It's been very informative. Dr. Curry, I'll ask you. You were a professor at my alma mater, so I did talk to Dr. Peterson here on Monday about some things, so not about climate change. But anyway, I'd like to ask you, what caused the Ice Age?
Well, the the big ice ages, the very big ice ages. Well, it has to do with.
I know you weren't there, but
orbital, yeah. The prevailing theory, the so-called Milankovitch theory, that it's related to the orbital variations, changes in the tilt of the Earth's axis, and then there's complex feedbacks with ocean circulations and the carbon cycle. So are we at a point where we have complete predictive understanding of the ice ages? The answer is no, but that's, our current understanding relates to Earth-Sun geometry, long-term deep circulations in the ocean, and the Earth's carbon cycle. All of these things
number one, all of those were natural causes.
Yeah.
Number two, it just proves the point that there is a lot we don't know about what goes on in years, whether it be 40 years or thousands of years or whatever. So when I first ran for office, which was many years ago, long before this issue was an issue, there was another issue, and it was called the coming Ice Age. There's a big article in one of the magazines, I think it was Time magazine, when I was running for office. I read everything. I just wanted to know as much as I could in case some question came up. So I read and read and read. Well, anyway, this article was by this was the standard belief of most scientists at the time in the late 70s. And it talked about the coming Ice Age. So you kind of wonder, we had some charts up there that started in late 79. I don't know, maybe those before that were the other way. And so the only growth in the temperature was a energizing what the temperature used to be before it was cooling. And so it just seems like there is such a short period of time we're looking at this data. It's calculated within, down to maybe 0.4 of a degree. And if we look back thousands of years, there might be a better pattern to see. And granted, we may not have that data, but it seems like we're basing a lot of things on current data, not on necessarily what's happened in the world in general. And we're blaming it on one set of circumstances, which may or may not have been the case for other things that occurred, in that in some cases, there weren't any humans.
Well, if you look at the climate of the 20th century, you saw a pretty steep warming trend in the early part of the century up until about 1940, 1945. And this is at a time when there was very little human input of carbon dioxide. And then we saw a cooling trend from the mid-40s to the mid-70s. Okay, and this is what, I guess, triggered concerns about the Ice Age. And then there was a massive reorganization of ocean circulations in the Pacific in the mid-1970s, the so-called, great climate shift. And then we saw increasing temperatures following that. And so trying to sort out what caused the early warming period and then the mid-century cooling period, I've argued that we need to understand this before we have highly confident attribution arguments about the warming since the mid-1970s. So there's a lot of natural variability, largely associated with the multi-decadal and longer ocean oscillations that are not well represented in the climate models. And this is why I've argued for fundamental climate dynamics research to try to better understand this.
So if the scientists of that day just not too long ago. Believed that there was a possibility of a coming ice age, and then all of a sudden it changes. Is that,
Well,
it seems like some of the data is being left out.
Well, that was before we had, in climate, climate modeling, global climate modeling was in its infancy, in the 1970s. So we really didn't have that as a tool to help us understand. But, we understand a lot more now than we did in the 1970s.
But the point is,
Gentleman's
if
time-
there was, if
gentleman's
that,
time
the
has
scientists
expired.
of that day, with the amount of information that they had at that time, believed this for a certainty, and now today we believe something for a certainty, we don't know what kind of technology is going to be available 40 years from now.
Yes, the unknown unknowns.
Yeah. So all I can say is, it seems to me like the more I hear, the more I believe that this is an ebb and flow, not necessarily a constant among even those, if they're the majority of scientists, it's going back and forth, not necessarily
are
staying
definitely
as a
oscillating.
stagnant.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you,
Okay, I
Mr.
yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. The gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Breyer, is recognized.
Yeah,